fix your eye.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the WTF cast. My name is Jim Rowlands. WTF this week was going to mean what's the future, but it turned out that it was something completely different, and you'll find out in a second. What can I say? This is a special edition special because a bit longer than the last couple of episodes, but also because I've decided to put the whole video out as well as the audio, not just an excerpt. So there'll be a lot to see, if you like. What can I tell you about the person that we're going to speak to today? Round about the turn of the century, remember that song? I was living in Paris and working in all parts of the Paris region. So I spent a lot of time in public transport. Sometimes 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening to get home. And during the day, I'd be going from one office to another, and that was often 45 minutes to an hour as well. And so I had my disc man in my pocket all the time. Remember them? That's giving my age away, and I was already in my 30s then. And I had developed something of a passion for late 60s pop, rock, and early 70s. Nothing after like 73, 74 when it gets very, very kind of preposterous. That's a good word. And so I started with the Beatles, of course, but then went all the way through to stuff like King Crimson and the Moody Blues, all of this kind of stuff. Lots of music. But there does come a point where you kind of run out of music. And so you go to the record shop you used to go to a record shop and have a look and see what there was, and maybe have a look at Rate Your Music to see if something in the same genre was any good, So I would be in there picking up hundreds and hundreds of extremely niche CDs, and you had a 9 out of 10 chance that it was going to be rubbish, and that was the reason why you hadn't heard of it before. And so I've got boxes full of CDs in this room next to me here, which I listened to once or twice, and then thought, maybe it's not for me. So I'm keeping them for my kids. They can discover how wonderful this music is one day. Anyway, I remember at one point, 2002, 3, perhaps, I saw in the Paris Metro, I saw a big poster for this group called Kaleidoscope, and it looked exactly up my street. It was very psychedelic. They were inside some kind of aluminium foil tent with all of the kind of garish paisley 1967 clothes. The funny thing was, when I saw this poster, I wasn't sure if it was a new group, but wearing the clothes from that period, or if it was a group which miraculously, in my search for new music, I hadn't heard of. And I saw the posters around town, and I saw them on a bus. And one day I went to the big record store in Paris, which was called the Fnac. And there was the same poster, and there was a big bunch of CDs by this group. So I thought, come on, let's get it. Kaleidoscope, from the album, was called Tangerine Dream, not to be confused with the German band, who I imagine nicked it from them. And honestly, I thought it was fantastic. It was exactly what you expect from a 1967 album in every way. Very, very good songwriting, great production. From A to Z, there wasn't really a weak moment on it at all, and this is first listen, it's not often. And I used to play it to my kids, and my kids would hear the first notes of the Kaleidoscope song, the opening song on the album, and they'd be like, Kaleidoscope, Kaleidoscope. So, which is nice. But I still had this kind of lingering doubt as to whether this was really from 1967, or if somebody had made a very, 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 very good imitation of a group from 1967. And the thing about the publicity for this event was that it was so focused on that one album that they didn't mention the others at all. And it was probably about 2007 that I came across the second album, Faintly Blowing, and was completely blown away by it as well. And this is when I started to realize that this actually was the real thing. So then you ask yourself, well, how come I had never heard this before? And then I saw in a Q magazine greatest psychedelic uh, albums of all time that Tangerine Dream, so the first Kaleidoscope album, was higher than Are You Experienced? The Who, Sell Out, and Odyssey and Oracle by the Zombies. And so you think, well, this is definitely something worth taking seriously. And then I found the third album where they changed the name to Fairfield Parlour, fourth album, White Faced Lady, which was recorded in 1970, I think, but didn't come out till 1991. The story is very, very, very complex. And I will put links underneath so that you can read it from the mouth and from the pen of the person we're going to speak to today. For me, this is the real deal. He probably won't agree with that, though. Anyway, they say you should never meet your heroes. But today, well, yesterday, because obviously I've changed my color, but I was lucky enough to do just that. And so, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Peter Daltrey. Right.
We sold a car a couple of years ago, and the registration number was WTF. It was in the register. It was in this registration number. So kids used to point us out as we drove by, and all go.
It's actually quite recent. I mean, certainly when I was young, and I imagine yourself as well. It's only in the last 15 to 20 years that anybody's really thought of it meaning that, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, it never clicked with us until we saw people, kids laughing at us in the street. We both said, "What's going on?" I think it was my son who pointed it out. We hadn't noticed.
I was reading somewhere that quite tragicomically, the World Taekwondo Federation had to change their name about 6 or 7 years ago, because you can imagine their annual conference with WTF behind them. Do you or did you get nervous before you go on stage, or have you always been quite kind of cool and level-headed?
Well, it's a really odd thing, because I'm sure that performing back in the day, I'm sure I got a bit nervous. But of course you had your three brothers with you. We were all going on stage together, so it wasn't so bad. But I can remember being tensed up. But when I did my tours in 2011, 2013, 17, I can remember it. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, I did. It was weird. I mean, I went back. Is this part of what we're talking about already?
We can go in any direction you like.
Okay. So, the first gig after a break of about 40 odd years was in San Francisco in a nice club there. Is again name I've forgotten. But it was the first gig after about 44 years or something.
Wow.
And I was sat outside this little vegetarian cafe opposite with some of the members of the band, and we were chatting away, and I was eating some sort of vegetable sausage roll or something. And somebody looked at the watch and said, "Oh, I think we better go. We're on in 10 minutes." And I thought to myself, I hadn't even thought about it. I was enjoying the evening so much. And we got up and walked across to the club, and I got changed and went on, and it just clicked like that. It just came back straight away. It was very odd, and it's something I miss, because I have called a halt to it because I'm deaf in my ear.
You mentioned tinnitus, yeah.
Well, I got tinnitus in both ears, and I'm deaf in my right ear, which is really difficult when it comes to recording. But also it's exacerbated by loud noise. And I mean, standing in front of a band doesn't do it any good at all. I knew that on the last tour of America, but I couldn't resist it when they invited me over. My wife said, "If you say no, you'll regret it for the rest of your life." So
you probably would.
I said yes, but because I can't hear her telling me now that I'll regret it for the rest of my life.
Oh, she sits on your left then, yeah.
Yeah, well, if she sits on the proper side, it'll be all right, but hopefully she'll still agree.
And I mean, I used to sing not at all the same level. I was doing Celtic music, and I was always terribly nervous before I went on. And the only one time that I wasn't, the show was awful because I was too relaxed. So how was it for you when you just arrived, in 10 minutes?
The point is for me that it's all very well standing up front and doing the singing and being the center of attention, but you've got your band behind you, and if you're confident in the band, then you can go on and be confident. And I think that's what happened. The guys I was playing with in America were amazing. I mean, they were no perfect on them. They were big fans of the band, and they were no perfect on the songs. And the same with my British band as well, based in Glasgow, the Trembling Bells. I mean, they were no perfect, and lovely people. I don't call myself a musician. I can bang out a few chords and pick out bass lines and strings on a keyboard, but I couldn't sit here and play you anything. I couldn't go down to the pub and play anybody anything. They'd throw me out. But to have a band of real musicians behind you is awe-inspiring, and very inspiring, because they carry the show really. I'm just up front singing all these old songs which people want to hear, which still bewildering. But no, I love it, and I do miss it. I mean, I've called a halt to it, but I do miss it. I'd love to go back and do it. The only trouble is I'm not a traveller. I don't enjoy travel very much, and of course it's part of the job to travel, and the long journeys, that literally sitting in the back of the van. I was still doing that in 2017, I think it was.
Oh, you looked very, very. I was watching some videos. I think maybe 2013 in London, I guess.
I forget the dates. There was. I can't remember. Yeah, the last one was the Hoxton Hall. Yeah,
and you look very happy.
You
look as though you're having a great time. Did you feel kind of vindicated? It's like, now they understand.
Yeah. Because it's heartwarming, and I enjoy the banter with the crowd as well. I really do enjoy it, and they seem to like it. It was a funny thing because I also like to tell people the story of the songs when we're performing in between songs. I like to explain, because people love that. They seem to love the background to the song, about why it was written like that, what the lyrics are about. And I enjoy telling them that. And we kept doing these shows, and my manager said to me, good show. But a word of advice, you're going to have to cut out all that chatter because it's taking too long.
It's like a Bruce Springsteen concert.
I said, I'm not doing it because everybody loves it, and I enjoy it. Gives me a rest in between songs, and it's thoroughly enjoyable. So like I say, I do miss it.
So would it be true to say that the gap between the journey and running through Chelsea was because of the ear, or you were just fed up of it? Or
no, not at all. I released, I think I've released, I don't know, 26 albums or something, including the Fairfield Parlour and Kaleidoscope material, and my own releases. I think it's up to about 26 or something. I can't even remember. But I had put an album out called The Life of a Butterfly, and that was written partly with some wonderful musicians, Damien Youth and Mike
New Orleans, yeah.
And I love that album so much, and I thought, well, I'm not going to top this. It was my sort of music. It was slightly folky, nice acoustic type album. And I did think to myself, well, I don't know whether anyone's interested. You don't get a lot of feedback nowadays. And I released it and thought, well, that's about it. And then, of course, along came my first tour in America, a short tour we did around California. And I was working with a band called Asteroid Number 4. We started writing. They approached me and said, would you fancy writing some songs? I said, well, of course. I always replied if somebody suggests it or asks me. I always say yes anyway, because I love working with other musicians. And we went through this album at the rate of knots. I mean, it was fantastic. It's a lovely album, a fantastic band. And
the production's very good as well. The sound quality on that album is really good.
Well, they're a great band, and then of course I thought I'd packed it in, but then that sparked my inspiration a bit, and I started fiddling about. But then a guy called Mark Mortimer, who I've known for some years, did the same. He said, "Look, I've got a couple of tunes. I don't know whether." I said, "Well, yeah, just punt them along." And that was running through Chelsea, and again, that was mostly in lockdown when we all had a lot of time to ourselves. And we just motored through it. It was an absolute delight. And when the music's coming, and you can't stop it. It's a wonderful feeling.
And the video is very funny as well.
Running through Chelsea.
I was watching that thing. Is that really you doing all the running? I couldn't run like that.
And it really is Chelsea as well.
I don't know London at all. I'm sorry.
No. Well, that's authentically Chelsea, and that's authentically me running around in my frock coat from the cover.
That's right. Yeah.
That was the same frock coat I wore on the front of Faintly Blowing and From Home to Home.
Right. Okay. You put out a video maybe a few days ago, maybe a bit longer. Maybe I only saw it a few days ago, where you were showing off, and you were saying how lucky we were, and showing off this. Oh, and there's also this and the box set. And I got the feeling that you were really proud of the Chelsea album, or not to put the other one down, or compare, but you seemed really happy with that.
Well, because like the Journey with Asteroid Number 4, when you're writing with other people, they push you. When I'm writing on my own, you've got to be careful you don't get too comfortable. But of course, they write in different keys. They throw in. Mark loves throwing in road chords, which stretches you. And it's got an energy about it. I mean, Mark has a whole army of musicians he calls in to make these albums. And the end result is amazing. I mean, the production and arrangements on that album are great. And there's songs on there that I'd have never have written on my own. So that I like being pushed and pulled by someone who's going to take me out of my comfort zone, so to speak.
When you were talking about in another interview the quality control that you had over the lyrics and the material with Kaleidoscope, do you think when you work with other people, do they take some of that away from you, or do you still keep the kind of control over what you're doing?
I am a control freak when it comes to my own music, definitely. Right. And even if I'm sharing and writing with other people, I'm still a control freak, which drives them mad. But yeah, I don't like writing or recording by committee. That's not the best part of collaboration for me. When I'm recording on my own, and I've been doing it today, and I write and record now all the time, I'm in total control. And right or wrong, the end result is all down to me. Somebody sent me an email the other day and said they just bought The Leopard and the Lamb, but there are no credits on the sleeve. Who are you working with? I had to write back and say, it's just me. But yeah, if you're writing with other people, there has to be some give and take. There has been with Mark. I mean, Mark's got very particular ideas, which he should have, because the music is his. So he's got real good ideas about where he wants to go. We're working with a different producer, or two producers, one here and one in America. And again, I have to accept that sometimes the end result isn't 100% what I'd have done myself, but it's when it gets to the mixing stage, that is quite collaborative, because you have to make compromises somewhere along the line.
So what I perceived as you being prouder of this album than this is perhaps some kind of modesty, false modesty, humility, because you were doing this with other people and you didn't want to.
Yeah, there's some of that as well. Well, look, I'm still very flattered. Look, I'm an old bloke now, and the thought that people half my age or less, want to write with me and have me on their recordings is very flattering. And I'm not famous. I'm nobody. I just had a couple of albums out in the 60s that we're very fortunate to have caught that 18 months when Psychedelia was active, exactly when we were recording. But we were just lucky to do that.
I think. Yeah.
But
what is famous if you're not?
Well, I don't know. But then then it came full circle in the 90s, was it, or 80s? I'm not sure. Somebody rang me up and said, "Did you know they're re-releasing your albums?" I said, "What?" I thought we'd been completely forgotten. So much so that, oh God, I found a box of tapes in the drawer and thought, well, no one's going to listen to those, and threw them away. They're in the dustbin. They're gone.
Oh.
And they had about 7 or 8, maybe more titles on that we've recorded as demos in Chappell's recording studio in London. And of course, they'd have been worth a couple of grand now for the box set, but that was my fault. I thought we'd been totally forgotten. But it came as a very pleasant surprise to find that much younger people, and I get, emails from young teenagers saying they've just discovered it. But what an incredible thing, when we grew up, the music was growing with us. It was, when I was 16, I was listening to Buddy Holly and Little Richard, Del Shannon, people like that, and they were growing and we were growing, and I've been alive the whole time this music's been there. But these kids today have got the whole of that to discover. Can you imagine that?
Well, at a different age, that's what I did myself. I was in Paris. It was 2003. And the metro stations, the underground stations, were full of huge billboards with your face on them and your brothers for the Tangerine Dream reissue. So that was 2003. And
in Paris?
In Paris, in the underground, and in every record shop, the first thing you would see was this huge poster of you guys.
Oh, bloody hell. I wish I had a copy of that.
Well, I think we communicated very briefly with MySpace just to show you how long ago it was.
Yeah.
And so I saw this, and everybody saw it, and they talked about it on TV, and it was on the radio, and this great lost thing that everybody should know. And so I went along and bought it, and haven't looked back. So it was because of the advertising that I discovered you myself.
Yeah, I did. There's something similar to that, because I was asked by, I used to be a mod, so I had a scooter and all the gear, and I had a communication from Fred Perry, the Fred Perry company, the clothing company.
Right.
They asked me if they could use one of my mod photos with me on the scooter, and I said, yeah, that's fine. I didn't ask any money for it. They had it in a company book, like a workbook or something. And I said, that's fine. Just send me some copies of the book. That's fine. And forgot about it. And then about a year later, one of my son's friends said to me, "Yeah, I was on holiday in France. Your dad's pictures all over the shops in Paris." And that was the Fred Perry shop in Paris had my photo blown up all over the wall. So I thought, that's a bit rich, because I didn't ask for anything. I just got the book, So I rang them up and said, look, I didn't realise you were going to use it in advertising. They said, oh, sorry, we lost your contact details. No, we must give you some money for that. So they gave me a bit of money for using it in the shop. And then blow me, about 6 months later, someone said, oh, you see your dad on TV. And I'm, what's this now? And then they started using it on a Fred Perry television advert.
Wow.
So I rang them again and said, "Here, hang on a minute. What's going on now?" They said, "Oh yeah, sorry, we lost your details. We must give you some money for that." So I said, "Well, how much do you owe me then?" He said, "Well, I think your image of you on your scooter was featured for, just out of the top of my head, something like 3.5 seconds. So we owe you £2,000." And I thought, what for 3.5 seconds? And they said, "Would that be all right?" I said, "Oh yeah, that's great." So I made more money out. I made more money out of the 3.5 seconds than I did out of any music ever.
Wow. Talking about France, because you mentioned France with the Fred Perry thing.
Oh yes.
This Bordeaux Rosé.
Yeah.
Now I've heard his version this morning for the first time.
Yeah.
And
have you seen the video? Have you seen the video?
I've seen the video.
Yeah, it's entertaining, isn't it?
And I thought, how would you describe him? It's like a really kitsch French Tom Jones with a wig.
Yeah. Oh, he was there. He was there. Cliff Richard. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Cliff Richard. That's another level of kitsch, isn't it? I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah.
How did that come about? And did they ask, or they just did it?
I can't. I don't. The trouble is with our companies that we work with, Fontana and Chappell's Music. I don't know whether they had any respect for us, or the communication was pretty bad. From our point of view, the worst mistake we made when we signed up was we didn't have a manager. And I blame Fontana for not telling us, hang on a minute, before you sign that contract, go out and get yourself a manager. We were totally green behind the ears. I mean, when somebody presents you with a recording contract, you don't say, oh, well, we're not signing that yet. We're going to find a manager. You don't do that. You say, give me the pen, you sign the damn thing. But no, the publisher, as far as I remember, I can't, it's a long time ago. But I think they might have just told us at some point someone's going to record Bordeaux Rosé. I mean, Bordeaux Rosé was a hit record. It was it should have been a very big hit. Yeah. But like everything that happened at Fontana, they never got the bloody records in the shops. That was the point, and we missed out a lot. We missed out on Jenny Artichoke. Jenny Artichoke was a hit record. They never stopped playing it on the radio, but it didn't sell because the thing wasn't in the shops. Then we re-signed to Vertigo, which was just another version of Fontana, and they did exactly the same. Bordeaux Rosé was on the radio the whole time. You could walk down the street and hear people singing it. But anyway, I think, cut a long story short, I think Chappell's might have said to us, look, some guy in France wants to record it, has recorded it. They wouldn't have asked our permission because that's not the way they worked, I'm afraid. And we probably never heard of him. I'm sure we hadn't. Until they sent us a copy, and it was quite a shock when it came back.
What was your gut reaction without even seeing it when you heard this slightly reggae-ish?
Well, it's first of all, the first feeling as a songwriter is, isn't it fantastic that someone else has recorded your song?
Right.
Which is the first reaction. Then you start listening to it and think, well, we wouldn't have done it like that, but it's kind of cute. But then the next reaction was, he's dead. Because
he died the day after that performance.
He died changing a light bulb in a bath. I mean, clever idea, and it stand up in the bath and try and change a light bulb. Because we thought, wow, fantastic. Once we found out how famous he was, I mean, Ed and I were seeing pound signs in the front of our eyes,
That's right.
But then, of course, like with all the bad luck that the band had, the guy passed away very sadly. But he was a massive star. But I've never been able to find out if that charted, that record. It must have done, because, if any pop star dies now, the first thing everyone does is start buying their records and get it back in the chart. Well, this was a new record. It literally released, a week or two before he died. And I thought, well, surely everyone in France, he's such a big star, they're all going to go out and buy it, and Ed and I are going to earn a decent amount of money on it. We never had any money off it, and I can't find out anywhere if it did chart. But anyway, that was...
I'll try and find out. If you look at the comments, I don't know if you can read any French, but if the comments under his video singing your song, a lot of French people saying, oh, I remember I sang that all summer. Oh, I really love that song. So you never know. The music publishers, of course, would know, because it's in their interest for these things to be on TV and get played.
And then a few years back, they contacted me. Did they tell me again? I'm not sure. Yeah, they might have done the some sort of wine association of Bordeaux.
That's right. Quite recently, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they used it in their advert, and all they had was the girl singing Bordeaux Rosé, and that was it. And we earned a lot of money out. We did earn a lot of money out of that, just from the radio advertising.
It's quite impressive to be able to say, the guy who had just written My Way, chose his next song to be your song, and sang it in English as well. He didn't even translate it.
Did he write My Way, the original? Did he just write the lyric or something?
No, he wrote the whole thing. And then was it Sinatra just changed it was called Comme d'habitude, as usual. Yeah. But it's exactly the same song.
Right. Yeah. Well, he must have made a packet out of that. Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, maybe not Claude François, not with your song, because of light bulbs. He's become something of a cause célèbre in France for just how stupid it was. One last thing, and then I'll let you go. The water-based songs that you were talking about in your video. Do you have that you were working on with Ed, and you found them again, and you've got the originals, and you're re-recording them as well? Do you know what I mean? I think
Well, we were in a difficult situation. I mean, we'd finished White-Faced Lady, and then, as you know, or most people know, we lost our recording contract because it was going to be released by Vertigo, by their boss Olaf Wiper. He sent us away to record it, go and record it, and when you come back, we'll release it. We finished it, went back to see him, and said, right, the album's ready. And he said, well, I can't do it. And we were shocked. We said, well, we've done it. He said, well, I can't do it because I'm leaving. I'm going to RCA. So we said, well, what the hell are we supposed to do? And he said, well, just wait a month or two and come and see me at RCA and we'll do it there. We said, oh, fabulous, great, fantastic. So we left it, went to see him at RCA. He said, I can't do it. He said, oh, on what? He said, I can't do it. He said, RCA don't want me to touch anything that I was working on Fontana. And that's it. We lost our recording contract at that point. But Ed and I had already been started writing songs. We never stopped. We started writing songs for the new album. And I'm a bit guilty of that, like with any album. Certainly, like if you listen to The Journey, the lyrics can often gel. You get a slight sort of theme running through it. That's where White-Faced Lady came from, because I could hear some sort of story in my head with that. And we didn't want to do a story album. We didn't want to do that again. But I did say to Ed, well, there's a couple of songs already have got a watery theme, like Trade Winds and Mecklesham Bay. Perhaps we could sort of move along in that way, and that, it made a nice cover as well. Gives you more, inspirational ideas for artwork and everything else. I said perhaps we could keep it on the watery theme, and that's where that came about. But of course, sadly, none of those songs made it to the studio. But in the box set, it's already been agreed that I've re-recorded. There were about half a dozen that Ed and I really loved. And it's been frustrating over the decades, thinking how much he loved them and how much I love them. So I've done it. I've recorded them myself and tried to, keep to the Fairfield Parlour Kaleidoscope feel with them. I'm pleased with the outcome, and hopefully, when Ed and I wrote songs, Ed used to say, "I've got some songs ready. Come on over," and he'd play me the song that he'd put to my lyric, and then I'd take my little tape recorder over and record him singing. So I've got all those tapes, and hopefully in the box set people will have a CD with the demos on one side and perhaps my updated recordings on the other, which will give them a good idea of where we might have gone if we'd have had the chance. It's been a labour of love, an absolute labour of love.
Any time frame on the box set, or are you still having problems with? Was it Universal or somebody?
It's been cooking for 10 years at least, and sadly, of course, poor Ed and Steve will never see it. But Dan and I are still knocking around. I have to laugh. I ring him up, ring Dan occasionally and say, no news on the box set, but I've got my fingers crossed. He said, bloody hell, he said, we'll both be dead by the time it comes out.
Well, I hope not. And the way they hear this box set as well.
But the way it's going, I think he might be close to the truth. But no, it's still ticking over. We're trying to finalise tracks that we want to register from Universal, but it's an incredibly slow process. You're dealing with 3 or 4 different companies, different people in each company, and unless you've got something right on it all the time, it drifts a bit. So we're hoping it's back on course, but it's not going to be. I don't see it till the end of the year, to be honest. Well, it's a big job. It's got to be right. It's got to be a big box. It's got to have everything in it. This is the definitive box set. This is the full circle. Everything you want to hear, and that will be on it. And then we can all go have a rest.
Even Bordeaux Rosé, sung by Claude François.
Well, no, we won't get a chance. We won't get a chance for that, I'm afraid. No, you'd have to license it. So.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much again for your time today.
No, well, thank you for asking me. It's been fun. I always, you know, I could, I could, as you can probably tell, I could sit all night and talk about the band. You know?
I'm sure you could, and I would love to talk for hours and hours and hours. But
Yeah.
I'm aware that it's you've already have a lot of long interviews out there, and
but there is one online, isn't there, on my on the Kaleidoscope website, which is a 3-hour interview.
I saw that.
Yeah, thoroughly enjoyable. I could have done 6 hours, but he cut me off.
That's nice. Well, I'm cutting you off, but in the most polite way possible.
Oh, right, okay.
Have a very good evening, and thank you again.
Yeah, keep in touch.
Will do. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
See you.